Hey guys, it's Edie. Welcome or welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all doing well, and in today's video we're going to be talking about I think I read 13 books, the 13 books I read in December. So my December reading wrap up. I've got all the books on here that I've read, all the star ratings I said, because I need to keep track of them because most of the time I can't remember what I've read in each month. So I have a little reading journal that I keep it all in. So I'm going to go first with the books that are on my December TBR. This is the best month I've had so far because I always pick 6 books and I actually read 4 out of 6 books, which is very good for me because usually I read 1 or 2 from my TBR. Let me just show you the 2 books I didn't get to read in this month. The first book I didn't get to read in was Mortal Dark by Tirges Grimmer, and this is a vampire book, I believe. It's a book about vampires, and I was gonna do like a reading vlog where I read fantasy books for a week, but I started reading one and it took me quite a while to read, so I never ended up finishing that vlog. So I didn't get to read this one, and I didn't get to read City of Bones by Cassandra Clare, which is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series, and I was really looking forward to getting to read this because it's such a popular book and book series, and I love the sound of it. I love the idea of the concept of it, but I just didn't get around to. So hopefully I'm going to be able to read it this month because I really want to, because it does sound really good and I just want to get into Cassandra Clare's books because I've never read one of her books before. So those are the 2 books that I did not read this month from my December TBR. Let me go through the 4 books that I did read that I picked for my December TBR. So one of them was Butcher and Blackbird by Brim Weaver, and this is the first book in a dark romance series, and I thought this was a really interesting concept, and I've never read anything similar to this before because it's 2 serial killers and they're both wanting to kill the same person, and that's how they meet. And then every year, for quite a few years, they meet on that exact day and they do this competition. The first person to find this person gets to kill them. So that's really interesting. I found it really funny because this is marketed as a dark rom-com, and it was, and I've never read any dark romance books that's a rom-com, and I feel like people might say that about books, but I did laugh out loud quite a few times while reading this. And some of the things Rowan would say to Sloane and about Sloane, it had me kicking my feet. I was having all the feelings, and I was listening to this on Audible, on an audiobook, and most times when you're listening to an audiobook, because this is dual POV, when they do each POV in each chapter, the whole chapter will be in that person's POV, if that makes sense. But the things the other person would say in the other person's POV, that narrator would say their character's lines in the other person's POV. I hope that makes sense. Probably doesn't, but in my mind it makes sense, so I thought that was really good. I really enjoyed the audiobook of this. And if you've read this, you know I can never look at ice cream the same way. And I ended up settling on a 4-star for this. So the next book I picked up was Nightbane by Alex Axter. This was one of the books I was going to read in the fantasy reading vlog for a week, but this took me over a week to read, and I was I can't just do 1 book in 1 video, that's a bit. But I decided to scrap that video. I'd done another video instead. But I did enjoy it, but not as much as the first book. And I feel I can't really tell you much about this book because it will spoil Light Lark. But what happens if you have read Light Lark, this will just carry on the story straight from when Light Lark finishes, which is the first book in this series. This book picks up right away, and I still am a Grimm stan. Grimm is my favourite out of the 2 options, let me just say that. And I'm excited to see what happens next, and the plot twist at the end, I was so shocked. But I did settle on this being a 3.5 stars because I feel it wasn't quite giving me that 4 stars. And there was bits that I didn't particularly like, and I didn't enjoy it as much as the first book, and it took me a bit longer to read. Because the first book, I read in less than 24 hours. I was hooked by it. But this one, I wasn't as hooked, but I still enjoyed aspects of it. The next book I didn't actually finish reading, I DNF'd it, but it was Credence by Penelope Douglas, and I have strong feelings about this. This is very bizarre, very strange. I did not like it. I only read about 20 chapters. Probably not even that, I think less than 100 pages, or I got 20 or 30% of the way in. I can't remember, it's something like that. And I did not like it. Even though they're not related by blood, they're still step uncle and step niece, and then they're step cousins. And it was just some of the things he was saying, he was saying you had nice hands, and I was He's like a 40-year-old man and she was 17 at the time when he said that, and I'm like, she's underage, that's creepy. If like one of my uncles said that to me, no, that is just strange. And the cousin, one of the cousins, because there's three of them in this, 3 males, 1 female, but anyway, one of the cousins was just, the first time he met her, I don't even think he said hello. He just started getting on with her. And she was 17 and he was in his, like, he's got to be in his mid-20s, I think. And that's just really gross and creepy. And the first time you meet someone doing that, no. I could not read any more of it. They did not do anything other than, like, they didn't really do anything in the part that I read, but knowing what was coming up, I just could not get myself through any more of it. So next book I read was Passenger Princess by Morgan Elizabeth, and this is like a bodyguard romance. She's like a pageant queen and he becomes her bodyguard to look after her because she's just won the big American pageant. I don't really know, but it was something like that. And she's having to tour around all the states in the US and people are starting to sabotage her and things like that. So it was alright. Wasn't my favourite. I thought it was cute bodyguard like romance. And I thought all the things like Jamie brought and done for, I can't even remember her name, I don't know, Ava, it says Ava. All the things he like done and brought for her, I think that was really cute, really sweet. But I didn't really feel a connection to it and I can't really remember anything else about this book. That's all I remember. But if you want it, probably like a light, fluffy, I believe it does have bits of spice in it, a book like that. This is an alright book, it was good. Not my favourite. There is better out there, but it was alright. And I ended up giving this 3 stars. I can see the lighting's like changing a bit and I'm sorry the sun's like coming through the clouds and going out, so I apologise for that. Those were the 4 books I read from my December TBR. Let me just move on to the rest of the books that I've read this month. I think that's a bit better. I put like a blanket over my window to hopefully not make it as bright when the sun does come out the clouds. And as you can see, it keeps changing, but I can't help that, it's the natural light. But anyway, the next book I picked up was My December Darling by Lauren Asher. And this is like a little tiny novella, and compared to Lauren Asher books, she like normal like novels, this is tiny compared to them. And even though it is like 230 pages and some like books are that length, for Lauren Asher this is small. And this is in like the same universe as the Dreamland Lakefront Billionaire series. You can read this and not have to read the other books and there won't be any, I don't think there's any character crossovers, I'm not sure, but it's set in that same like town. And this is basically Catalina's coming back to the small town for her sister's like wedding, and the person her sister is marrying is her ex-boyfriend. So that's quite an interesting dynamic, but there's no like bad blood or anything like that between her and her sister. Catalina's also like a travelling nurse, I believe she is, so she goes around all like different places, and I don't know if it is just the US or the world or whatever. She goes around loads of different places. Every couple of months she moves and she's never in one place for a long time, and she hasn't been back to her like home small town for a really long time. And Luke is like a doctor in the hospital, and he's also is her sister's fiance who she's marrying, her ex-best friend is Luke. Luke is going to be the best man in the wedding. I feel like I've explained it in a more complicated way than it is, but he's just best man in the wedding, and him and Catalina do not get along. He tries to avoid her because of like, I can't really remember why, but they just don't like each other. And then they see each other in hospital, they spend more time with each other, and that's pretty much the basic like storyline of this book. And this is such a sweet, short little novella. I read it so quickly. I think I might have read it in a day. And it doesn't give off the most Christmas vibes because this is like a Christmas book, but I still really enjoy the Christmas sort of things they do. And even though this is such a small book, I feel like there's so much crammed into it. And watching like Catalina grow as a character and her development throughout this, I thought was really good. Because she starts out really closed off to her family. She doesn't want to talk to her family about certain things, especially her mother. And then she starts to open up about her mother, about her feelings, how she feels and things like that. And I really loved watching her develop and be more open to people. And I feel like I could have just read 200 more pages of like Luke and Catalina because I just love them. I love their chemistry, their connection. And like the epilogue, there was like a proposal, and the way he proposed was like the perfect way for them because they have this like one thing in common. I'm not going to say what it is, but there is a kind of a tiny little clue on the front cover, and the things he done, he brought something for her, just for her, so they could do it together, and it was so cute. And I ended up giving this a 4.25 stars. So one of the next books I read was Hooked by Emily McIntyre. I read this one, Credence and Butcher and Blackbird, in a reading vlog, so I'll put it up on the screen in whichever corner it comes up on. So if you want to see more in-depth thoughts and feelings while I was reading them, you can go watch that video. This is the first book in the Never After series, and they're almost like reimagining retellings of like fairy tales, and this one's sort of like a Peter Pan retelling. So the main character is called James, and something's happened when he was younger. They're all like criminals, most of the people in this, and he wants to get revenge by someone who'd done something to him in his past to cause very much hurt in his life. I don't want to spoil much, but yeah, he wants to get revenge for something that happened when he was a child, and he runs this like bar as like I guess a cover-up for his like criminal activities. And one day Wendy comes into the bar with her friends, and Wendy happens to be the daughter of the person he's trying to get like revenge on. So he kind of like plots. He starts seeing her, starts spending more time with her, getting close to her, starting to try and get revenge. I don't think he was trying to get revenge through her, but I think he was trying to get more information about things and stuff like that. And I just loved that this was like a retelling of like a fairy tale, because I do love it when like the villain gets the girl. There's just something about it, I don't know what it is. Sometimes I like that more than the good guy. I don't know, I feel like you guys will understand that. And like throughout this there was like subtle hints to like the fairy tale, to like Peter and Pan, and I really enjoyed that. Like James's nickname, I think it is Hooked, I want to say, or something like that, and there's just like so many like references, and I love that. The only thing I wish there was more of was like groveling, because when like the conflict happened and what James done to Wendy, she like took him back instantly, and I was like, girl, make him grovel more. He didn't do barely any. I was like thinking, what is this? I just wanted a bit more of that like tension that you get from the groveling, and I wanted to see what James would do to try and win Wendy back, but she just took him back, and I was like, what? I was a bit not disappointed by that, but I was just like, I want more. And like the last 100 pages of this book, there's so many twists, there's so many turns, and there is like a betrayal in this by someone that James is quite close to. And there was a point through it where they were on the yacht, because James owns the yacht, and at that point I was like, this person is gonna do something to James and betray him. And I was right, that person did betray him, but that didn't take away from my shock when he did get betrayed by that person. And I rated this book of 4 stars. So the next book I read was the 3rd book in the Mindfuck series, which is Scarlet Angel. The whole series is in this book, and I've been reading them gradually, and I really like it. Basically what this is like a serial killer, female serial killer. Her name's Lorna, and like the person she like falls in love with and gets a relationship with is the FBI agent investigating the murders that she's committing, the crimes. So that's really interesting, and I really like that dynamic. I think it's so good. Lorna is such a strong character, and I feel like I don't really have much more else to say, because I can't really remember what happens in each book, because they're so short, and they like just like they're all like flow all together, if that makes sense. So you could literally just read this all as one book if you wanted to. But I'm excited to read the 4th and 5th book, because there's 5 books in this series, and I'm just gonna excited to see what happens, if he finds out, how he finds out. But yeah, I really like it. A lot of people do like it, and I would like recommend it. I don't think I said what I gave the 3rd book in that series. I gave that 4 stars. So the next book I read was Crimson River by Devney Perry, and this book is the 5th book in the Eden series, and the Eden series follows the 6 Eden siblings, and each one of them has their own books. This book follows Layla and Vance, and Vance is like is he a detective or just like a cop, or he's something along the lines of that, and Layla runs the coffee shop in the small town of Quincy, and she's on one of the trails one day, and she comes across this guy, and he hits her and runs, and that gets plastered over. No, he doesn't hit her, he tries to strangle her actually, and she almost gets murdered. So he runs away, he doesn't end up killing her, this guy, and it gets plastered over. Does it go on the news? I think it does. And then this Vance sees that and he's like, that might be the person he's looking for, because basically his best friend, his like, what do you call it when they're two cops, and he used to work with this guy, partners, his partner when he used to work at the police station, they're both cops. Basically that person that Vance, he was really good friends with, and all of a sudden one day he murdered his 3 daughters and his wife and he ran away. Hasn't been seen since, and Vance has been tracking him down for years, and he's finally tracked him down to a small town of like Quincy, and he's like searching for him, and then he finds out about Layla and they start getting involved, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. It's really good, I really liked it. This book is a bit like instant love, and that's not always my favourite, but I didn't mind it in this. I really did enjoy this book, and I love the mystery part of this like series, this book, and like the whole series, and it just keeps you guessing, and like I feel like I read this so quickly because it's so fast paced, and I really enjoyed that, and like the twists about like the circumstances of the murder of the 3 kids and the wife, and it had me shocked at points. And the way this sets up for the last book in this series, I was like just sat there gobsmacked. And I'm going to talk about the last book in this series because I did end up reading that, but I really enjoyed this. It isn't my favourite in the series. I want to say it might be one of my least favourites, but it's still 4 stars. I gave it 4 stars because absolutely phenomenal, this whole series, like I keep saying. But yeah, if you do love small town romance and you want something that has a bit more than just romance, each book has like an underlying mystery suspense plot, and I really enjoyed that about this series, so I would 100% recommend them. So the next book I read was Christmas in Quincy by Devney Perry, and this is also part of like the Eden series. This is like a tiny little novella. It is like 133 pages, so it's really short, really quick. I read it in one sitting, and this novella you're meant to read before you start any of the other like main books in this series, but I did not do that, and I don't feel like you have to, because none of the characters in this come up. I don't know if they do come up in the Quincy, like in the Eden's actual like series books, but you don't meet any of the Edens in this book. I don't think you do, I might be wrong, but there's no spoilers, no nothing like that if you read the other books first. I think I actually remember, I think you only meet 3 of the Eden siblings. I think it might be Eloise, Knox, and maybe Mateo, I want to say. Those are the siblings you meet in this, but I might be wrong. But you don't meet many of them. It doesn't spoil anything about their stories, so you can read this whenever you want. You can read it last, you can read it first, you can read it smack bang in the middle. It doesn't matter. And this is like a bodyguard sort of like romance, because basically the main character, I can't remember her name, Cleo, she originally lives in California. I believe she's some sort of daughter of some sort of rich person, and she just wants to get away from like California and all of that sort of stuff at Christmas, so she decides to go to this small town of like Quincy, and she doesn't tell anyone. She doesn't tell her father, I don't even know if she tells her friends. I'm not sure. I think she might have, but they would keep it a secret from her, and she just decided to go to the small town of Quincy. And then she gets there, and then she has a knock on the door, and who is it? None other than her old bodyguard that used to look after, like the head of the bodyguards her father hires to look after his family, and he turns up outside knocking on the hotel door. He wants to take her back to California. She doesn't. They end up stuck in Quincy, and yeah, that is pretty much the book. I really did enjoy it. It's really quick, really sweet novella, but I don't think it had the most Christmassy vibes in either, but I still really liked it, and I ended up giving this a 3.5 stars. So the next book I read was Stable Pete by Devney Perry, and this is the last like full book in the Eden series, and that made me really sad while I was reading it. This is Mateo's book and this is Vera's book. I'm not going to say much about Vera because it would kind of spoil the Crimson River book, because she plays a role in that book. That's all I'm going to say. But basically, Mateo's is at his family's house one day and he gets a call saying he has a kid, because he used to live in Alaska and he used to fly planes up into Alaska and deliver to remote parts of that like region, and he's got a kid up there. So he goes and gets a kid, brings the kid back, and he's basically like this is like a single father romance, and I absolutely loved that. I ate it up. It was just so good. And because of like the circumstances Vera is in, she ends up staying in like above the barn of the Eden's like family ranch. She stays above that bit. is it called like a little annex, or I don't know what it's called, but she stays there because she doesn't have anywhere to live, and she's starting back at like school and doing like college and things like that. That's what I'm gonna say. And Matteo and Vera become really close, and she starts to look after his kid, I believe, and the relationship like he has with his kid is so cute. I really enjoyed that. And like I said, I'm really sad that this series, and like I don't get to see any more of the Eden siblings because I absolutely love them, and I could just read a whole book of like them as a family, like spending time together, the things they get up to. I could just read a whole book about that because I just absolutely adore them. And this book was pulling at my heartstrings at so many times, especially with everything that Vera and her, like what happened to her family and like all of that stuff. It really pulled at my heartstrings. I think I did probably shed a few tears while reading this. And I really enjoyed like Vera's character development, seeing her open up to Matteo and like come to terms with everything that's happened in her past and what she's been through. And the epilogue of this made me so happy. And there's like a bonus epilogue, so you get 2 epilogues, and the last one is in Harrison's POV, and Harrison is like the father of the Eden's like children, and it made me so happy, and I laughed so many times during that like epilogue because he's such a funny character. And I ended up giving this 5 stars because it's given me all those feelings, having me kicking my feet, blushing, crying, sad, all of those feelings. And I did think it was really good, and it was a really good way to end the series, but also really sad because it is the end of the series. So the next book I read was The Eden's A Legacy Story by Devney Perry, and this is also part of the Eden series. This is literally the tiniest little like novella book ever. I believe it's like 73 pages long, and it says on Goodreads this is book 4.5, so you're meant to read this after book 4, but I read it at the end after I finished all the other books. And this is basically the parents of the Eden siblings parents stories. So this is Anne and Harrison's story, and this is actually like a second chance romance because they were together in like high school and then they broke up, and then they go to this cabin and then they do they hate each other? They don't really particularly like each other, and then they just talk about what happened, and then they realise it's a bit of a misunderstanding, and that's basically it. And I read this one in one sitting because it is so short, and I really enjoyed getting to see their story. I wish we got a whole book about like Harrison and Anne, because I'd love to see them, like how they like met them in high school, and like just like the whole like story of them. And if you did really like the Eden like series and you haven't read any of the novellas, I think you should definitely give them a go. And for a novella, I always say it's really hard to rate them because they're not the full books, so you don't have like a whole plot like a whole book does, but I really still did enjoy it, so I settled on giving this a 4 stars. The next book I read was Addicted to You by Krista and Becca Ritchie, and I feel like a lot of people know this series and maybe what it's about, but if you don't, this is the first book in like a 10 book series, I think it is. And it basically follows 3 siblings and their love stories. And this one follows Lily and Lo, and basically they're both like addicts. He's like an alcohol addict, she's like a sex addict, and it's just them and their stories and trying to cope with that and realising, wait, they actually do need help, because that becomes right at the end. They realise we need to get help, and they get help in the next book. I don't really know what else to say about it, but they've like at the beginning they're like fake dating because they want to like hide their addictions to their family, and they feel like the only way to hide it from their families is to like fake date. So it starts off with that, but then they start to like rely on each other more, and Lily starts to use Lo as like the part to feed her addiction rather than random strangers. So that's basically that. I feel like I explained it in a really bad way, but I don't know how else to explain it other than that, and I don't want to explain too much of it because I don't want to spoil it, because I feel like this is such emotional, and I feel like probably do check trigger warnings before you read it because it might have some triggering things in it for certain people. I did find it a bit like slow at times, but I feel like because it's such a long book series it will start to pick up, and you will start to hopefully, I don't know what I'm thinking. I thought this was a really good start to like the series and a good introduction to all the characters, because you do meet all the sisters and you do meet all their love interests in this book. but technically both, there's like two separate series that are interconnected. There's Lily and Lo's series, and there's the two other sisters of the Lily, and those two sisters are their own series, and Lily and Lo's is their own series, if that makes sense, but you can read them interconnected, and that's the recommended way to read it. I hope that made sense. But I did find this one was a bit slow at time, but it was like introducing the characters, building them up, setting the storylines and things like that, and sometimes the first book in long series can be a bit slow, but I did still really enjoyed it. But like the ending, it really did break my heart for Lily and Lo, and like it does take you on a bit of an emotional roller coaster, this book. But I did not cry at this one because this is the first book. I don't feel as attached to them as you would like later down the line in books further along, but I did really enjoy it. I gave this 4 stars, and I'm excited to read the rest of the series. The next book I read was Ricochet by Krista and Becca Ritchie, and this is the second book in the series, the Addicted Sister Calloway series, and this is the second book in Lily and Lo's. They're not really together at all. Well, they are together in a couple as a sense, but they're separated because Lo's getting help with his addiction and Lily's getting help with theirs, and they're not physically together, but they are a couple, if I hope that makes sense. And the first book is the same as this one. You only get it from Lily's point of view. You don't get Lo's point of view yet through any of these 2 books, and I just really want to see Lo's point of view, but I hopefully will get it later down in the line maybe. And I felt so much more emotion from Lily in this book, and I feel so much more connected to her and Lo, and I really am rooting for them as a couple, even though they kind of like enabled each other's addictions. They like did realise it, and they are getting help for those addictions in this book, because that's basically what this book is, them getting help for the 2 addictions they had. And Rose is one of Lily's sisters, and I really just love the way Rose is there for Lily throughout this book, and you can just really tell how much she just wants the best for Lily. And I really do like that. I really love Rose's character. She's such a strong-willed character, and I'm excited to read her book and see what hers is about. I ended up giving this book a 4.5 stars. And the last book I am currently still reading, but it's a reread, so I thought I'd just add this in on the end because I'm filming this on the 30th of December, because I'm not going to be able to film it tomorrow or the day after or the days after that. So I need to get it filmed now. I'm still currently reading it, but I'm rereading Iron Flame and annotating it, ready for when Onyx Storm comes out. But I just thought I'd mention it because I really like it. I'm so excited for Onyx Storm, and I will probably be able to finish this before the end of the month, because I think I have just over 100 pages left, and you can see all my little annotation tabs, and I'm just really excited for Onyx Storm. And yeah, I probably am going to give this 5 stars because the first time I read it I gave it 5 stars, and it's still giving me all those same feelings as when I read it the first time. And I feel like reading it the second time I'm thinking of so many more things, so many more theories about like Onyx Storms and the books that are coming after, and I'm just so excited. I love this book, I love this series. So that is everything for the December reading wrap up. Those are all the books I've read, all my thoughts, all my feelings of the books I've read this month, and I feel like it was a semi-decent month for books. So I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, do give it a thumbs up. Put in the comments of this video which book was your favourite book you read in December. I feel like mine has got to be either, I know I'm rereading Iron Flame, but that's probably definitely my favourite. If not, it would probably be Stable Pete by Devney Perry. Those are my 2 favourite books I've read this month. If you haven't already, do subscribe so you can see more videos for me, and I'll see you next time. Bye!